I'm Fraser Simons.
I'm YG Mitchell.
And this is Young at Heart, a sports drama story game. So last time on Young at Heart, we saw the young couple move from small town to big life, and the adjustment was a little rough. They had an argument, Bridget stormed off, Hoyt texted Jake, and it was sort of like a foreshadowing of things to come in the future. And the last thing we saw was Hoyt smoothing out the paper on the table, right? For him to potentially do something with later in order to maybe repair this rift in their relationship way back when, yeah.
Make it right, yeah.
And so now, with that end of the scene, we have decreased our talent, as we have with every scene so far. For flashbacks anyway, and what happens then is a special scene triggers, and that's what we'll be doing now.
We're gonna come back to reality, come back to real time, and Hoyt is on the mound with the ball in his hand, staring down a new batter. I think it's the start of a new inning. We're just over halfway through the game, and Hoyt is starting to look a bit worse for wear. The bags under his eyes are starting to really show, and the vein in his temple is starting to be more pronounced slightly, and he's punching the ball into his glove, and he's staring out at Jake behind the batter. And Jake is making all the signals for him, and he's shaking his head again and again for every signal. And he's kind of frowning, and he's looking pretty shaky out there. I think he's been chewing gum the whole time, and I think he goes to spit. We see some blood come out of his mouth as he spits. He wipes his mouth, looks over at Jake. Jake doesn't notice.
Maybe, like, he doesn't see the blood, right? But he sees you, like, doing that picture thing where you're trying to buy time to think or get your head right or whatever. Whatever the reason, right? He does the T symbol over his glove, and then we hear the whistle, and he runs over. How's it going, champ? Need some time?
I just need a minute. Hoyt bends over and puts both his hands on his knees. Just starts to breathe a bit.
You haven't gone into a game this long for some time.
He's clearly in pain, some cramps or something. I've got to stop, Jake.
I think Jake would be like, knows that the way to get Hoyt fired up and push through these things usually is like to get him pissed off, right? So I think he's gonna mention, like, he'll be like, geez, you sound exactly like when you and Bridget had that fallout and we went to that bar, you remember? The one with the old oak, and you thought it was a great idea to light the bar on fire when we spilled our drinks on it. I think that idea is just about as good as you stopping right now. What do you think?
Hoyt grits his teeth, and maybe that's the point where Jake sees like some blood in his teeth. He says, "Don't remind me." He's like Clint Eastwood levels of pissed off. Like,
yeah, we get like a shot of Hoyt's head kind of like being in front of the sun, right? And it like for a second there, it like eclipses the sun on the camera, and Jake maybe has a little grin and takes a step back though, so he's not like, being aggressive about it. And he just like takes a big breath in his chest and lets it out, and he's like, hey, I'm not trying to start anything, but you and me both know we need a little bit of fire in the game if we're going to keep going. I'm not going to tell you what to do one way or the other, but based on what's going on right now, you really think giving up is the thing that we ought to be doing? Because remember, whatever happens, we're in this together. And he kind of is like trying to remind Hoyt about like, hey, if you leave the game, I'm screwed too, in a very madly subtle way.
Hoyt knows. He knows that his decisions are all tied up in Jake, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So I think he has to battle on, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm.
He spits his now red gum out onto the floor
Yeah.
and kind of rubs it into the dirt with his shoe.
Maybe Jake has like a pack of like really spicy gum, right? That he carries on him. That's like his favorite brand, and maybe he gives Hoyt a pack of that to sort of like help out with that kind of thing. Like it's the only real gesture he has to give somebody, so it looks like kind of like a flaccid gesture, but it's all that he has to offer at the moment, right?
He takes 2 sticks and crams it into their mouth and makes a like overly obvious scene of being disturbed by this spicy gum, which everybody knows is disgusting. Don't know how you can chew that.
Exactly. Jake laughs, and it's like, I think it's even more loud than he thought it would be, kind of thing, like a boisterous, boyish thing. And then he does the baseball thing, which is pat you on the fanny, right?
Yeah.
And then he goes back, and he gets down and gets ready for the pitch, and he looks at the batter, and he's like, "You're in for something special, champ." Hoyt like spits out, not the gum, but just like a spit of like a mixture of this blood and water thing that's like starting to make a little tiny pool by the mound then.
Oh, yeah.
And he takes like a deep breath, and he gets like a flash of that face of like Bridget being super disappointed, right? And then he like does a fastball, and it's like a lot louder than a snap crack, and when the speedometer shows it's something crazy, right, like 115 or something like that, and when it shows 115, we get that same transition to an older baseball park, and I'll roll, I think that's pride, right, when he like gets super PO'd about, you know, her leaving and the way that he's treated and stuff. It might be a little bit of both, which makes sense why we're both rolling too then. And what did I get? I got I rolled 2d6, but my first one is a 6.
Oh, so. Right. Okay. That's how it works, is it?
There we go.
Is that in the rules? I'm sorry, I'll check the PDF.
all right. I'll roll again.
I'm kidding, it's fine.
Oh, I still won. I rolled again and I still won. It's because this game is all about pride, apparently, right? Just steamrolls.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so from now on, when we are doing scenes, we'll have to consume heart and pride in order to keep going. So we'll bear that in mind.
We're going to be taking away the heart and pride that we've been earning so far in the previous scenes. And soon we'll be left with none.
So now it's a game between us getting a feel for the rest of the story to come to the quote-unquote correct decisions for Hoyt versus trying to have as much heart and pride for the end game. So, yeah, so we'll see the 115 mile per hour radar go into clearly like an older stadium, showing the time going back again to a flashback scene. And I think he's practicing there, right? And he's shooting the ball. Nobody, like, he's throwing it faster than he's ever thrown it before, and it's because like rooted in that pride and heart for Bridget, the mingled thing going on that he's got. And I think he is just doing it to lay off steam. Like, it's shortly after that bar scene where they lit it on fire, is what we alluded to. And he's throwing the balls. Bridget still hasn't come home. Like, he throws a ball and he takes out his phone, and the last text on it to Bridget is like, "Are you coming home?" And there's just no reply, right? And it's been some time. So I think what happens is he realizes that, like, throwing the ball only goes so far for helping his emotional state. And he goes back home. We get a cut to him, like, opening the door. He grabs that paper off the table, and maybe he goes to the mall And there's like a nice little flashback within a flashback of them going to the mall and her like wanting to buy stuff and him just wanting to leave and that kind of stuff. And she points to a store where she wanted to get something framed, maybe even like the contract framed at this place. And she points at a really expensive frame and he scoffs, right? And says that it's like too much money, that kind of thing. And he buys that frame. And then when he gets home, why don't we see if pride or heart takes over for what he does next with it?
Yeah. So which one would you like?
Perhaps pride again.
Okay.
I got a 3.
Oh.
So heart wins for once in its life.
So he gets home with the framed acceptance letter, takes it straight into the living room and takes down his contract, hangs up the acceptance letter instead. And it's just a small gesture, but I think...
Well, it'll be the first thing that she sees when she walks in too, probably, right?
And also, it's like the first step to trying to make things right, I think.
Should we just fade out on, like, her coming home and, like, opening the door and seeing the frame, right? Like, the camera, like, pans in on this nice, expensive-looking frame. His contract's not even there. Her acceptance letter is there. And, like, yeah, hopefully his message is, like, you're important.
Hi, this is Jason from the Gauntlet Gaming Community. If you enjoyed this episode of Comic Strip AP, please consider supporting the Gauntlet on Patreon. Our page can be found at patreon.com/gauntlet.